guys, what's up? Welcome to Wholesaling with Lenny. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I want to introduce my special guest tonight. Okay, the man's an author. Okay, the man's a wholesaling machine. The man is a creative finance machine. Okay, the man is a tech guru as well. Okay, founder of the Automated REI. Guys, give a warm welcome. Okay, to Michael Batista. Okay, Mike, what's going on?
All right, man. Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. I know we've had an opportunity to have many conversations and link up on multiple different types of deals, and now we're finally able to put some under contract, get some things going. That's that's what this business is all about. Nothing has to bear fruit day one.
Right,
As
exactly.
long as you keep the door open and be respectful. You try not to piss people off, right? Do right by them when you can do a deal. And
Exactly.
so yeah, just here to drop the knowledge as much as I can. I don't know um, specifically what you want to talk about tonight, but I'm an open book, so let me know. And
Most
I've
definitely.
definitely been
Well,
in
we,
the business for a while, so
well, we can start off with. I'm not gonna really ask you to go too much into the book since you brought up book, right? And I know you're writing a book, so
right.
I'm not gonna ask you to go too much into the book. But can you kind of theorize? Theorize a summary. For the audience. What some of the book entail. I mean, because I know you've been wholesaling, you've been wholesaling and investing for a while, right? Um, you put together by yourself this think tank plan, right, to kind of dominate certain markets and move certain things around, in real estate, right? So, if you can kind of just give us a little synopsis of the book.
Definitely. So the book in general talks about really being the best version of yourself, right? And a lot of people they say the biggest thing that can I would look at being very detrimental to your success is accepting mediocrity, right?
Right.
And all of the most renowned guys in the game, and it doesn't have to be just real estate. It could be business, it could be life in general, right? What is success? And it's something that I believe very passionately about, very strongly about that. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes no matter what. You should always continue to study. You should always learn as much as you can about your craft, right? And one guy that has probably been the most impactful for me is a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. And that's exactly what Jim Rohn talks about. Success is measured based on doing your best, right? That is, it's not. Is $50,000 a year acceptable, right? Everybody's going to measure what success looks like. Um, to one person, they might make 10 million and feel like a failure. Another guy might make 100K and feel like he's on top of the world, right? And I think Jim Rohn said it best that it really comes down to if the level of effort that you put in is your best, that's what measures success. And so for me, that's what the book is about. It's heavily um, I use a lot of analogies. I use a lot of different things in pop culture uh, to kind of tie back into this book. But one of the biggest influences for me in the book, I use a lot of the Matrix, right? And in the Matrix, specifically Neo, um, finds himself in this world, right? Obviously, we all know what the Matrix is, but he finds himself in this world that he doesn't know what's wrong. He just knows something's wrong. Something's not quite
Right.
right here. I don't know
Exactly.
why. I go to work. I pay my taxes. I do what I'm supposed to do. But then he dabbles in a side thing, computer hacking, right? And he stumbles across the term the matrix, and they don't really, the writers, the people that actually came together to create that story, one of the things about that is they leave a lot of holes. So you kind of have to use your imagination in a lot of things. But one thing that really resonated with me is when Neo later, he actually meets Morpheus, right? And when he meets Morpheus, he says, "Do you want to know what it is? What
Right.
is the Matrix?" Right? And to me, it's very much like today's world, right? That there's so many different types of things out there. Media, you have social media, you have um, you know all sorts of different like TikToks, and you know
Right.
the feminist movements, and the BLM movements, and all these different movements, right? And it's just everybody trying to figure out exactly what and where they want to be in this world. What kind of message? What do they want to actually put out and feel good about, right? And none of it's necessarily wrong. It's all perspective. This world,
Exactly. Exactly.
everything is perspective, and I think that's actually um, the strongest point that I'm trying to make in this book, is that whatever you do, just be the best that you possibly can be at it. Do your very best today, right? And that's actually the thing that Morpheus tries to teach Neo, tries to show Neo that you are better than this, you're faster than this, you're stronger than this. Nobody can beat you but you.
Exactly.
And that's what the most successful people in this world believe. And I believe that as well. And so I'm more of a storyteller. I think I'm pretty good at telling stories. I've had a considerable amount of customer service experience, a considerable amount of sales experience. I've been in real estate for almost 6 years. Um, so I've seen a lot of different things, a lot of different perspective. I've been in the restaurant industry. I've been around people, right? And
Right.
and when you and when you're around people, you have an opportunity to see and talk to a lot of different people in general. And I've put in my time. And I think one thing that's really interesting, when I was first kind of learning about what is
What
it
is
to be, I'm not going. All right, you hear me okay? So looking at is when you first get started in the world, right? You have no idea what you're doing, right? And I think a lot of newbie investors and not a lot of newbie wholesalers get into this business, um, and they kind of defeat themselves. You'll see grown men and grown women literally sit there and not get on the phone. They won't get on the phone. They're terrified. Thankfully, I didn't know it at the time, but when I started learning about any sort of what is it like to actually be an employee, I'm learning these different skills. I didn't know the phone would be the most important thing for me. Started working in a call center, right? And it was a company called APAC. We were like we're an outsourced call center in the United States. Right? You think of outsourcing, you think of the Philippines. Right? Well, they could just pay us $9 an hour and work in the US and have USA talent, right? So it just made more sense. They wanted to pride themselves on that versus hiring in-house as Verizon wireless reps, because we did customer service for Verizon. They would have had to pay us $12 an hour plus benefits and phone plans and all this other stuff. And so it made more sense for them to outsource it to this company. And I was able to spend and really get exposed to being on the phones. And of course, I was terrified just like anybody else, but And there were grown people that walked out day one when they were on. They went through all of the training. I think it was like 8 weeks of training, right? Because the computer system was so ridiculous and sophisticated. Um, but it's really an interesting industry to get into, and thankfully I did that. Thankfully I took that job, and then I went and I worked for Sprint customer service. I spent almost 2 years there. So that gave me 3 years of call center experience, 3 years of not being scared to get on the phone. And that kind of translated into a very high level of what I would consider as just ability to talk to people on the phone. Just having a normal conversation as a normal human. I'm sorry, Lenny, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
Yep.
was saying
Yep.
I see that. I see that a lot, especially when as you know, I've come from call centers, as well. I've done a lot of cold calling as well.
Yep.
Particularly for my for my own companies, etc. And I literally found out when
Yep.
if you start on those phones and you get good on those phones, and if you wanted to just say automatically go door to door and sell Kirby's, I'm pretty sure you'd be damn good at it because you done killed the phones already, right? So it's
Right.
like anything you literally go out there and do, you can pretty much, I've seen a lot of people transition very well from the phones going, into direct sales. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Versus, yeah, man, definitely.
And it's nice, this business of real estate. And of course, it's not the business of real estate. It's really a game board. The whole world as we know it. That's why I use the Matrix, because it's really a virtual world. Of course, you translate it into the world as it sits today, and you look back, well, through history, the moment that the Constitution was signed, right? We had agreed to everybody, we the people had agreed to enter in a certain set of structured rules. And those certain set of structured rules over time as it has evolved, um, through the Revolutionary War, through the Civil War, through, Vietnam, all these different wars that we had, um, has kind of shaped us to today's society. And
Right,
in today's society, we have taxes, we have debt, we have commerce, we have the internet, all sorts of different products, every invention that's ever been made, a phone,
right,
automobiles, the freaking railroad, right?
right,
Um, all was really an invention to solve. That invention was created to solve a problem,
right.
right?
So that's
And
basically, so that's basically, basically what the book is about. I mean, just,
right.
keep going, don't stop, figure it out,
Hmm.
get past the mirages, right?
How do
Go
you
and
do
go.
that though? Before you can even decide to, well, let's go back, right? Before you can even make a decision to make a change or do something, the one thing that you actually have to encounter, okay, and I'll give you an example. Think of Harry Potter, think of Star Wars, think of Lord of the Rings, um, like NFL, like we're fans of these things. The reason that we're
Right,
fans of these things is because for whatever reason, we like sci-fi. We like things that aren't in our normal thing. Wow, man, I would love to fucking fly a car. I would love to jump on that hoverboard, um, from Back to the Future. Like all these different things. What are if you really look at it, and why people become fans is because it inspires them. And that's the key word, inspiration. It's not
right,
motivation. It's not, um, there's a lot of different things that could be used. It's actually the most powerful word is inspiration, right?
exactly.
If you can know that someone has done something you know that it can be done.
Exactly.
And even and now, of course, in 2022, 2023 going into, we have it easier today than we ever have by far. I mean, look back in the 1500s. What did the kings and queens have to do? They had huge libraries of encyclopedias, right?
Right. Exactly.
That was the old world version of today's Google.
Exactly.
Think of Google like the genie. I have heard, I can't remember who told me this. I think it was Jim Rohn, and he said the world will give you whatever you ask of it. You need to only ask,
Exactly.
right? And what that actually means is, think of Google, look at Google like a genie in a bottle.
Yeah.
And you say genie, or you say Google, how can I do X? And that's
Exactly.
actually what led me to the path in real estate. I didn't have any money when I got started, right? Just most people don't. Most people aren't born with a silver spoon. They don't have money that grows on trees. I mean, I think I started with probably $8,000, which was probably more than a lot of people, but it's because I had my software platform. We'll get into that. But when I started real estate, this is before anything, I had Googled how to invest in real estate with no money. And I learned that through, the word I like to use is concepts. And concepts, and everything in the whole world is a mathematical equation. Every problem can be solved with math. And it doesn't have to be calculus. It doesn't have to be algebra per se. It's really more long division and long multiplication. If you do that long division, let's say you have million, let's say 7, 8, 10 digits that you have to multiply. You could get through that by hand. It's just going to take forever. The beautiful thing is now we have a calculator, right? I can type that into my calculator. I have the answer in seconds, right? That is a superpower.
Right.
If you compare to the 1500s man and woman, that's a superpower. You literally had to go through all of the encyclopedias to find the answer for something. And you just imagine how far they had to search the world to create that. Literally, Google is all of man's searching, putting it all onto an online database. So we have to ask a question. We have to just understand how to ask questions.
Right.
How can I? Where do I go? Exactly. Who can I talk to? Like you have to know a certain level of questions, but I'm not a doctor. I don't have a master's degree. I went to college for 1 year and I stopped going after a year. I was the 93rd student out of a graduating class of 93. I passed with a D- average, right? I was ADD. All I wanted to do was play video games. I didn't have any sort of direction in my life, right? And Google and YouTube was literally where I went to learn anything about business, learn anything about real estate. It's really very interesting. And I learned that because I had a computer when I was 11 years old, and that was a big deal back then.
Definitely.
I'm 33 now. So 22 years ago, we had the family computer.
Exactly. Right.
I learned how to write, like more through. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of role playing. If you ever heard of role playing on video games, like Japanese role playing games, like Final Fantasy. There was a writing style of role playing. Think of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's more just typing. Okay. And I had learned how to articulate words through this role playing type of thing on a website called DragonBallZ.com. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And they had a chat room on there. And so I went
Right.
in, and of course I'm an 11, 12-year-old kid. I don't know what's going on. And, I see these people in there, and they're doing this role playing thing. And basically it was a fighting style where two characters would act out. They're basically telling a story. They're writing a story
Right.
through two characters fighting, or two characters telling a story of fighting, or maybe two characters telling a story of an adventure, right? And that's really what that website was. So I learned how to do that at a very early, pretty early age, not extremely early, 11, 12. And I carried that on. I got into online role playing games. People probably are familiar with World of Warcraft. I didn't play
Yeah.
World of Warcraft, but I played another game called RuneScape. And the nice thing that I learned from RuneScape was the concept of skills. There was many different skills that you could do, far more than any other game I had encountered at that time. Usually in a game, you have to get in, and your character will be let's say they're a mage, or they're a swordsman, right, or whatever. In this game, you could be a mage, you could be a swordsman, you could be a bow and arrow guy, you could be a miner, you could get literally all of these skills up to level 99, every single one of them, unheard of. Even till this day, I don't know of any games that are like that. So it was very ahead of its time. And what I had realized fairly recently, really just within the past few months, and that's what kind of led me down to the idea of writing this book, is that every single skill comes from a concept. So concept
Exactly.
equals
Exactly.
skills, and skills, when maximized to its highest potential, equals a superpower. Even a skill at a modest potential can be a superpower. If you understand
Exactly.
something that's, I would say, even if you're adept, just decent enough to talk to someone else about what it is you know about that
Right.
topic, and you can actually show them as well on paper or through an example, hey, I'm not a master of this, but this is what I understand how this works. And you can kind of give a basic demonstration, and you can teach that person. The ability to teach, the ability to tell stories, the best actors in the world, right?
Exactly.
They have superpowers to be able to portray something in writing from a script and act it out on screen. They can tell that story. In order to tell a story, you have to have a great actor, right?
Right.
But in order for that actor to be great at acting, you have to have a great writer. So writing, I would say, is probably the highest skill possible that you can be. Like, if you can actually tell a great story, if you can write, if you can articulate words, I think that's one of the most valuable superpowers there are. Because, I mean, think about it. Jesus Christ, right? The Bible, literally the concept of the Bible. Now, I'm not a religious guy in general, but the concept of the Bible is literally good versus evil, the 10 Commandments. Before the world had the 10 Commandments, everything was in chaos. Without that, we don't have what we have today. And that's where I basically applied the words for the greater good. Okay, people
Right.
accepted the concept of the Bible, or the concept of the 10 Commandments, people being good, generally good, rather than everybody just being neutrally evil or just neutral not good.
Right.
Um, People had accepted that, right? And so that carried on, and as it's evolved into today, any invention that has ever been created was literally to solve a problem, right? We have a light bulb because Thomas Edison, Tesla, those guys came together. They wanted to create electricity to get us out of the dark. They wanted us to have more time during the day, right?
Exactly.
And having more time during the day literally is a mathematical equation, right? How many more hours can we get in our day to be productive? Most
Exactly.
people don't use the hours that they have to be productive, though, unfortunately. But the
Right.
ones that do, the 0.001% have a mission. That mission is, hey, whatever this problem or set of problems are in the world, this is what I want to solve. This is what I want to spend my life resolving.
Right.
Right?
So right now, um, right, right, we covered the book, right? So we do got the book coming out, right? So when I'm not gonna touch on when you gonna release the book, right? So let's talk about the software,
Sure, sure.
right? Let's
So
talk about the software.
yeah, definitely. So the software platform really was something that I had started almost 5 years ago now. It was a year development. And the reason that I started the platform um, was because I didn't want to spend money on another platform. So I said, well, it'd be a great idea to go spend 50 grand to go build this rather than subscribe
Yeah.
to a platform for $100 a month. Of course, this is a long time ago. Now I would never make that decision. 5 years ago, I didn't have the wherewithal.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
mathematical equation doesn't really compute. I could have made so much more money just doing the deals, but that's neither here nor there. It's just is what it is, right? Um, but what the platform does, okay, mostly it functions as a massive text messaging platform. We also do scrape data from Craigslist. We scrape data from Zillow. And when I first started the business of real estate, of course, there's several strategies you can play, but what I first started learning about was from a guy named Joe Crump. He was my first mentor. I didn't hire him as a mentor. He was just a guy I watched on YouTube, watched all his stuff, understood it very well. And his techniques, his strategy, his main thing that he pushed was lease with option to buy or lease options. And
Right.
more specifically, getting a deal under contract on a lease with option to buy and then flipping that to a tenant buyer. Tenant buyer meaning a tenant that eventually wants to purchase the property, right? And he had a platform, so I wanted to go build my own. So I, learned how to source where I could find the cheapest data. I learned how to network with those guys that in Pakistan, India, Malaysia, all sorts of different places. And so we scraped Craigslist, we scraped Zillow, and I was taking the data from that scrape, and I would send out a massive text, and the text would say, "Hey, I saw your house on Craigslist. I was wondering if you would consider doing a rent to own on the house. Please let me know. Thank you." Something very straightforward like that. It was almost that to a T, and I would get a 30 to 50% response rate. Again, this is 4 years ago. I don't know specifically if we're getting exactly that right now, but lately it's been closer to 30. The highest I've consistently gotten was like 55, 50. And it's the cheapest way I've ever found to generate leads. Now, of course, flipping a lease option, you're going to make 5, 6, 7 grand on that. As long as that's good enough and that's consistent enough for people. And I thought it was very predictable, right? I could go and scrape 1,000 listings, send out 1,000 texts. I could get 500 responses, 300 at low. Let's say 300 at low. And then 20 to 30% of the people that responded would say yes or maybe, right? And so that was about 60 to 90 leads out of 1,000 scrapes. And I mean, it cost me pennies. Like probably the whole campaign was $15, $10, something
Wow.
like that. And just I've never found a cheaper data source if you're actually spending money on data and you want to have that amount of leads. I mean, it's one thing to go, it takes a lot of time to go cold call 1,000 people to generate one lead. If I can just send 1,000 texts and all of a sudden I have 60 leads, it's overwhelming. It's absolutely overwhelming.
Exactly, exactly. Guys, if you guys don't know, like if you just jumping in, Michael actually does own the Automated REI.com. I actually got the link in the bottom, scrolling past. If you guys want to go ahead and check that out really fast.
Yeah. And, the platform was really a life changer. In general, just the idea, the concepts that Joe had taught me, through his videos. And of course, I applied it into my own platform. But Craigslist was extremely powerful. It still works well.
Definitely.
I would say Facebook Marketplace has more or less overtaken a lot of that,
Yeah,
and
a little bit.
it's a much harder platform to scrape. But I've had success also on scraping Zillow leads, right? Just Zillow Fizbos for sale by owners,
Right.
and then even conversations with real estate agents. And that actually brings me into how I did some of my first deals in real estate.
I was just about to. Just about to ask you that.
Yeah, definitely. So the concept though of scraping and texting and creating leads for 10, 15, 20 cents a pop was a big game changer for me. It told me that, man, this doesn't have to be expensive to
Right.
actually make some money and get some traction. I mean, 10K, 5K a month, to do one flip, one lease option flip, you make 5K on one of those. If it's a good enough deal, even investors will buy that. And some of those investors will pay you 10, 15K. If it's a really big cash flow, it's a really big spread. Maybe it has some equity in it. Those are just about as valuable as a true seller finance deal.
Right.
Most people don't know that, but it really goes to show that if you have some ability, really, to be able to talk to a seller about an idea, about a concept, and it's a story, right? That's why I say storytelling and writing is a very, very powerful thing. But if you can tell a story, and that's how I learned real estate. I applied what I did in the phones. I took it over to real estate, and I said, I don't know anything about this lease option thing, but all I'm going to do is go call not 100 phone calls, 100 conversations. And I'm going to get through all of those conversations, the entire script every time. And so I had to get through 100 real estate conversations before I even felt comfortable talking about it.
Hold on.
That's
Okay. Hold on. Stop. Hold on. Stop. So you just said 100 conversations and make sure that you finish the script.
finish it, finish the script. Just understand you have to accept that I'm going to get in this pool and I know I'm not going to be able to swim, but I'm just going to get through the script. And you have to be able to master the script to
Yeah.
be able to ad lib.
Yeah.
No
Definitely.
actor in the world, and we are
Definitely.
actors. That I mean, make no mistake about it. When we're on the phone, we are actors, right? That's just what it is.
What it
When you're in
is. Yeah.
sales, when you're
It's
in
what it
customer
is.
service, when you're trying to buy a property, and you're just trying to buy a property, you have to be able to tell a story. You have to be able to read the script, okay? Because they're going to ask you because you're playing a strategy. You're playing a game.
Exactly.
You're playing a strategy, and you have to be able to answer questions about this concept, about this new idea that
Right.
sellers
Right.
they don't have an investor background. For us to come
Exactly.
and say, hey, you can do this and you can do that and you can do all these different things with your house, Mr. Seller, did you know? And it's like he's like, what in the
Wow.
living hell?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
just think about anything brand new that you learn. If you've never shot a basketball, the concept of shooting a basketball is going to be extremely foreign to you, right? It like think of any sport, right? I'm good. I'm very good at go karts because I spent an entire summer. That was my first job, and I can go and race go karts. Even having not raced go karts, I could go and beat every single person that's random off of the street. right?
Right.
Because I learned how to do that. I spent 90 days consistently just racing go-karts pretty much by myself and with people while I worked at the go-kart track. So it was very interesting. You can come back into this, you can walk right back into not being on the phones, but you'll be rusty. But as long as you've gone through and you've learned the basic, you've developed an adept skill, adept level, adept being just, I'm good enough to get through it slowly, right? And then
Right.
when I'm an expert, I can get through it quickly. When I'm a master, maybe an hour surgery for this doctor takes me 5 minutes because I'm a master, right? That's kind of how you can self-assess. Well, how fast can I do this on a very high level? If I can
Right.
break down this entire deal, if I know how to underwrite a deal in 5 minutes, when I first started underwriting deals, man, it took me like an hour and a half, 2 hours just to understand if a real estate deal made sense, right?
Right.
Even with the tutorials, even with all the stuff that you could find online, you have to go through the repetition. So I said, I am accepting defeat. I do not care if I close any of I know I'm not going to close any of these sellers. My goal is to get through the script and answer all of their questions every single time. And I went in without texting the sellers. I just called them up and I asked them, would you consider doing a rent to own on this house? And then I would pitch the benefits. I would talk about the benefits. I would talk about the cons. I would talk about all the stuff, right? And now I didn't put any deal under contract. I knew I wasn't going to, but I had to understand that I had to go through these repetitions to be able to build my real estate tongue, per se. I had to be
Right.
able to talk about the thing, the strategy on a decent enough level, on an adept enough level. And eventually over time it became, more expert. Now I'm not a master of lease options. I don't even really consider myself a supreme expert. I'm not. One guy I would consider an expert is my friend Justin Chamness. He's a coach. He's a mentor, more specifically towards lease options. And the reason that he teaches it, again, is because um, it's one of the easiest strategies to learn, brand new, and it's one of the cheapest strategies to use to generate leads. Like I talked about, pennies for leads. So it's crazy. Um, but that is actually how I did my first deal. So I'll segue into that.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
had just caught that little piece real quick. I don't want to cut you off, but I had just caught that little piece and it had tied in. And I had just dropped the link again, just scrolling down at the bottom of the screen, because I was just looking at the text messaging platform that you have built into the software. Guys, if you guys, like I said, guys, if you guys haven't tried the Automated REI text messaging software, you guys need to do that, right?
yeah,
As Michael was saying, one of the cheap,
pennies.
fastest,
Yeah, yeah.
efficient way to get leads without you guys blowing the bank, right? And the text messaging, to add that text messaging with that, man, is really awesome. I didn't want to take up too much time, but
No, you're good.
I had just kind of
Yeah,
caught the text messaging part.
right.
And like you said, as it says on the website, 90% of the text messages are read within, the first 3 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, I mean,
just
so
insane.
I mean, if you look at a rate like that, you kind of think, why aren't you texting all these sellers, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and it goes back to a lot of people say, well, what are the dangers of texting? And there's a lot of different things that have kind of come through the pipeline, like people getting fines and all this different stuff for texting, right? Understand that people that put their phone number on Zillow, like as a FISBO, people that put their phone number on Craigslist, right?
Yeah,
They want you to reach out. They want you to contact them. So that that rule, that issue that you would get through maybe an off-market type of
right,
situation, it doesn't really apply here because they're
right,
advertising openly.
exactly,
So
exactly,
you automatically are within the gray line. Like you're not even on a gray line. You're within the boundary,
right,
right?
exactly.
So that's very helpful. It's very powerful to know that. So that's why lease options is one of the best ways to get started. You just, for $100 a month, probably even less than that, you could
Yeah,
have more leads than what you would know. It's overwhelming, really. Um, and that's good. You want to have as many at bats as possible.
definitely.
That is the only way that you're going to succeed. If you are making one offer a week, you're not going to succeed. But if you have 60 leads all of a sudden in your freaking inbox, right? And you're like, every one of these people are a yes or a maybe. Let me call and talk to them.
Exactly.
It's out of this world. So I kind of segueing into that, I will talk about kind of like some of my first deals. It was actually an on-market deal, and it was listed for a while. It ended up being 4 properties.
Really?
4 properties. And I had called the real estate agent. It was actually a deal in Springfield,
Nice.
Missouri. And the agent had been trying to move these houses, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't selling. I think the seller wanted too much for it. I mean, even today's numbers, probably still a little high, but I took
Yeah.
it down. I took it down with creative finance. Um, we did an actual seller finance transaction. We didn't do a lease option, but the only thing is I called up the agent. I said, hey, the guy's name is Chris. I said, hey, Chris, would your seller be willing to do something a little creative? And I just shut up. I said it like that. The inflection in the voice right there, that right there basically is like me coming off. I'm not really sure that he's going to
Right.
do it.
Exactly.
You know, kind of like, hey, you know,
Yeah. Right.
I don't even know if this is a thing. You know, like in my mind, I understand well damn what I'm talking about. But the agent, I come off like I'm not. It's an act, right? And believe it, matters a lot, because if an agent feels like they can help you, they're going to help you. That's their job. They want to make a deal because they're motivated, especially if a deal has been sitting on the market. But hey, I just had an idea. Any any possibility the seller might do something creative on this? And
Right.
probably not. But I mean, is any chance? And a lot of the agents, and you say there's probably you kind of leading with there's no way in the world I know this guy's going to do it, but hey, let me ask, let me just throw an idea out there, and then
Exactly.
try it like that. 9 times out of 10, right, they're going to say, well, maybe.
Yeah.
even if the agent is like they're super not personable, and like some agents are like that. I don't know. Some are very strict, some are very harsh to the point. But the more you come off confused, sound like you don't know what you're and you'd think it'd be the exact opposite. But
Right.
agents, especially if you've never talked to them before, they want to feel like they control the deal, they
Exactly.
control the room.
Exactly.
So you got to know this, you got to
Yeah.
understand this, right?
Right.
And it's the psychology of sales, right? And so
Most definitely.
you're just playing the game. You're playing the game and letting them lead the thing. Like you're
Right.
leading it, but you're letting them lead it, right? And
Exactly.
they're saying, okay, let me check, and you could basically, maybe I give him a down payment. He carries the deal for a couple of years, and then I cash him out. And any possibility you might consider doing something like that, and they'll check and they'll try to make it happen, because if they can get that deal done and it's been sitting on Zillow for 98 days, and
Right. Exactly.
they've showed it 18 times, and they've taken 100
Exactly.
phone calls and 28 emails or whatever it is, they're done. They don't like, they're just trying to make $1,000 and move on. They don't care. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you got to play to that. you got to understand that this agent wants to do a deal, especially if you can go direct to the seller's agent and put something together, because they're going to get both sides of the commission. They're going to make that happen. So,
Exactly right.
but I ended up putting $2,000 down on each of the houses, right? And so it was 3 houses, $2,000 down each, and then we closed on it. I ended up, while I was under contract, I threw them up on Facebook Marketplace, and I found tenant buyers for all of them. Now, these houses needed work, right? They were not what I would
Right.
consider livable. They were not livable. But I threw them up there. I said, fixer upper, handyman special, rent to own. $2,000 down, or I think I led with like $4,000 down, and I couldn't quite get it. The people said, well, would you take two? And I'm like, well, if I can get into it for no money or get real,
Yeah.
like I think I ended up buying all three of them for like $1,000 total.
Oh man.
I had to spend $1,000, but I bought all three of those. And so that was pretty cool. You know, that was like, all right, firsthand, this works. Firsthand, this works. So creative finance was kind of my gateway of doing some of those first deals. Now I'd done lease out, like that was actually bringing deals in house and buying them.
Right.
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 Now I've done a lot of lease options and things like that in the past. You know, flipping lease options, that sort of thing. But as far as like taking them down, feeling comfortable as an investor,
Yeah.
right, to, you know, put it in my name, put the mortgage in my name, take on that risk, take on that debt. It took me many years to study debt, to study, you know, mortgage, to study risk, to feel comfortable with wanting to actually do that.
Right.
Um, and you know, even today, um, as long as a property can cash flow, as long as it can pay for itself, that's what I always look at. You don't necessarily buy these houses, buy these small properties for $100 a month. You know, it's not going to make you
Right.
rich.
Right.
Um, but I think why small properties are very attractive, right? Is you can get into them for very little money down or no money
Yeah.
down.
Right.
You can do creative finance. Um, you know, there's hard money. One of the best strategies out there is doing a 50-50 partnership with someone who brings the cash. Um,
Right.
if you don't have any cash, but you actually know what you're talking about, and you can say, look, I've done all this stuff. I've studied all of this. I know what I'm talking about. And
Right.
it's confidence on the phone. Like I had that. I had trained my tongue to talk investor language, right? And other
Right.
investors realize that. Other investors know that when you talk to them. And when someone, any banker, anybody that's in the position of lending money, they want to know that, hey, this person that I put my money with, it's going to be safe. It's going to come back to
Exactly.
me. My
Yeah.
biggest thing is that I'm not going to lose money.
Exactly.
If I, you know, that's the number one rule of investing. Don't lose money.
So, so like, if we got somebody right now who's watching, watching the show right now, and they wanted to get, either they're watching in the Facebook group
Yep.
Wholesaling with Lenny, or they're watching this on YouTube, or they may be listening to us on Apple or Spotify. Um, if someone wanted to get into creative finance, and they let's say they had, $5,000 in their
Yep.
pocket to get started, where would you have them start?
So it really depends on a couple of things. The $5,000, I would say take $4,900 of that and put it in your pocket. Take $100 bill, right? Go do 1,000 scrapes, send out 1,000 texts, and work those leads. You're not going to be good at this business starting out. It's just not going to happen. What I
Right.
want you to do is get as many at bats as possible. Now, it's not just at bats. Eventually, that's how I started. Was I didn't care. It was just let me go call a Craigslist seller because I know they're much more likely to answer the phone first
Yeah,
and
right,
foremost, right? So I called the Craigslist sellers. I played that math. I realized, okay, early on, the mathematical statistics of me calling a Craigslist seller versus calling an off-market seller was almost a 10x, or 10
right,
times more likely to answer. All right, so let me do that. I took my script, called the Craigslist sellers, talked to them about the lease options, right? Even if you don't want to be in lease options, right? It's good to have those at bats and talk about a strategy, right?
right,
And maybe it's a wholesale deal, maybe it's not. It probably isn't, right? But because a lot of Craigslist deals, they just don't always pencil out to be a good wholesale deal.
right,
But they do very well fit in the lease options strategy. So, but know that these same sellers are motivated too, right? If they've got their deal online, there's some sort of level of motivation. So what you're trying to do is uncover that. What do you what do you want to do after you sell the property? Where do you plan on going? And there's ways that you have to say it. You can't just say, what are you going to do with the money? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
it's not like that. You have to be able to develop conversational skills, right? And the only way you
Exactly.
do that is by getting at bats. You go through the script, you answer the questions, and the better and the more times that you do that, every single call, you say, all right, I finished the call. I didn't like that didn't really go that well. The first ones aren't. It literally takes a full 100 before you
Right,
feel somewhat adept um, at that. So you'll go through that and you'll say, okay, I'm not going to say this next time. And you have to take notes. Just you don't have to write a whole book while you're on the phone, but just okay, next time just write a quick one word. Don't talk about this, and you just put that word maybe that you use that just you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that.
right,
Just know next time you don't say that, right? Just cross it out. And after you go through the 15th, the 25th, the 55th call, you realize that, hey, I didn't say any of those things that I said on my first calls. Actually sound a lot better. And you start measuring how fast they have a question, you can answer it like that. That's how you can tell you are improving on
right,
your ability to answer those questions, right? So that's what if anybody was starting, I would say you want as many quality at bats as possible, but it's the quality doesn't matter necessarily right away. You just want to get through the script. You know that you're not going to close any of those people. That you're not going to
right. Exactly.
do a deal with any of those first 100. And if you
It's just
do,
all practice.
yeah, if you do, it's luck, right? Congratulations. It's not skill. Okay,
Exactly
unless
right.
it's not. Um, and that's okay if you have beginner's luck, and some people are more lucky than others, and some people are more positive minded than others. But I will tell you that the very moment that you have success, the very moment that you say, "Man, I did my first deal," or "Man, I've got a deal under contract," probably not going to end up selling the deal. I've had so many deals I've gotten under contract that didn't sell. You know how many wholesalers I've talked to that have gotten deals under contract that didn't sell it, and then you talk to them a month later and they're not in the business anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That sucks because they went through
yeah,
all of the phone calls that they needed to go through to get that deal under contract, and then
yeah.
they quit. They're literally, if
I,
they
I had,
do if they
I,
do four more of those, they'll do a deal. It's a
yeah,
1-to-5 ratio in wholesaling when you start, and when you are very good. I'm talking
yeah,
about the big
exactly.
disposition companies. Their national average is 50%, guys. Even those guys are 50%. Okay,
Right,
we've got to know the math. As long as we know the math, we can win the game. That's why math is very important. Just basic math.
right,
That's all we need. We don't need algebra. We don't need calculus. I don't even know. I failed algebra. Okay, I passed pre-algebra, but the moment algebra came onto my desk, it was over.
Right. Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome that you said that, man. Because a lot of people, like a lot of people right now, they think that they have to have a lot of money. That's why I said, hey,
Yeah.
somebody might be looking with some money right now, and they're trying to figure out how to get started, how to do this, and you basically set out that $5,000, put that $4,900 in your pocket, and you go ahead and you get your roll on.
Yeah. I
There's
don't want
somebody
you. I
that
don't want you on a CRM. I don't want you on. You know. I don't want you hiring a VA. I don't want you doing any of this stuff. The only thing I would want you to do, literally, is you could go to the website down below, automatedrei.com. We have a pay-as-you-go plan. Like it's super cheap. Let's say you spent $100, right? You get 30, you get 50, you get 60 leads. You reach out, you know, to anybody that understands lease options, right? My friend Justin Chamness, fantastic guy, one of my best friends in the world, someone I would consider a big brother to me now. He is a lease options coach. He's extremely affordable. I think he's like $100 a month. Now, looking at the automated REI, we do have a coaching plan on there. I'm not on that coaching plan. This is all 100% ran by Justin. And the reason that I did that is because I believe in what he's doing. For $100 a month to teach people how to do that, it's a ridiculous price for the value. That's all I can say. But if you're looking at just saving that $5,000, I would not want someone to go spend $1,000 on yellow postcards or yellow
right,
mailers or
right,
any sort of mailing campaigns. You are going to waste your money because you do not have the skill to start being successful. You have to have those at bats, and you have to strike out 100 times before you're going to hit the ball. It's just reality, right? But if you can take the mentality like, look, that was a no. I'm literally one no closer to a yes, right? I'm one more failed question away from not failing that question next time. It's just you're self-assessing every single call. You say, all right, I didn't like that I said this. I'm not going to say
right.
this anymore. And if I say it again, I'm going to just remind myself again not to say it. And I will continue to improve, continue to rewrite my script, right? And maybe you have to write your script to
Yeah, yeah,
more follow your
yeah,
personality.
yeah. I always tell
And
I tell people that if you get any script from anywhere, it's literally only framework, right?
yeah,
So if you can, in your mind, use your own script. The first script I ever wrote was for my home security company because
right,
my mentor, in Bruce Arnoff in the home security space, he used to write his script, and this is the first time that I ever saw a businessman actually pay someone to come to his house and
right,
sit on the phone
yeah,
and just dial leads. I was like, oh
yeah,
shit, like this is,
yeah,
what I mean? And we were doing it for home security. I could just imagine,
hmm,
if we was doing this for homes back then in 2017.
right. And that's about when I started. It was 2017 too, and um, lease options worked great then. They still work great now, and in fact, the more and more that these interest rates and stuff like that go up, it's just harder and more difficult to cash flow on properties, right? The more and more
Yeah,
sellers realize that their buyers can't buy these houses. So lease options are going to make another surge right now. And getting good at that technique, right? Getting good at that strategy, period, is not only great for beginners, but it's great to know when the market is kind of tanking. You can always
right.
pivot from flips. You can always pivot from new construction. If you're in the flipping business and utilize lease options, utilize some form of creative finance. It's anything creative finance, lease option is just part of creative financing
Right.
umbrella, right? You could take the deed
It's all
through
in
a
that
seller
bag.
finance. Yeah. You could take the deed through the seller finance, but what this allows you to do is just be able to get the deal under contract. And let's say I don't know enough about property management. I'm not comfortable with taking on that risk. And you probably shouldn't take on that risk. I would not recommend someone to do that, at least for a couple of years of studying debt, studying how to manage cash flow, because most people aren't coming from a financial literate background, right? I didn't come from a financial literate background. I just knew that if I had some money, don't go and spend it on an Xbox 720 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like
Right, right.
I didn't do that. I was very good at not spending money on things I didn't really have a lot of value in. I always just had everything I needed. You know, I had a computer and that was it. I played emulators if I needed to play video games. If I needed to watch a movie, I figured out how to pirate movies. You know what I mean? Like all sorts of different things. Like, um, so I wasn't spending money unnecessarily. I wasn't a big clothing guy. I wasn't a big jewelry guy. Um, I got in trouble with cars, early on, just like a lot of people. But then I realized, I said, okay, I'm not going to do that again because I ended up having to sell the car later and I lost a lot of money on it. So I realized a lot of these different things that we can acquire, they're just things, right? But if we take that same time, I don't watch NFL, I don't really play video games anymore. I spend all of that time, and I have spent pretty much all of that time over the last 5 years, 2 to 3 hours a day, every single day, consistently, without fail, on podcasts, on Bigger Pockets, on YouTube, trying to learn about mindset, on guys like Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Grant Cardone, right? All of these major players, not necessarily just in real estate, right? It's great to know about the strategies. You have to know the strategies, right? But the most important thing is the mindset, man. Is
Exactly.
how do I get up and kick the fucking day's ass, right?
Right. Every day.
like, like, go. Like sometimes I'll say in the mirror, I'll say, "Go beat the shit out of the day today." You know what I mean? Like, go
Yeah,
kick it.
yeah.
And if that's what you got to do, that's what I do, right? Not everybody has to do that, but that pumps me up. That gets me going. I said, I'm gonna go do a deal today. Let's go figure out what's available. Let's go see
Right.
how I can make money today. And it's fun. And when you get good at it, you get very good at it.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
first those first 100 calls, right? That's 5 years ago, man. Every single day you spend going through those 100. No, it didn't take. I didn't do those in one day. It took me probably a couple of days to get through the 100 calls.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but I said, no matter what, I know I'm going to lose on these calls. My goal is not to close the seller. It's just to answer these questions effectively and get better at it. That's all I said. And that was my expectation. Once I took the expectation of winning that deal right now into just saying I'm just going to invest this time into my training. It's free training, man. All you got to do is call these
Right.
sellers. They're going to give you their time for free.
That's right. That's
You're
right.
gonna you're gonna
That's
make
right.
here's the thing. You're gonna make less than my operation manager, the guy that runs the automated REI.com. His name is Tusif. He was my operation manager for many years. Really, the last 6 months, I promoted him to partner. He's now a 50-50 partner with me on that company. He's from Pakistan, and he makes more money now than than most people in Pakistan will make in their life, right? It's just, and I started him off at $1 an hour. It's because
Right.
I didn't have the financial wherewithal to pay him really a lot more than that. But he took it and he helped me build this company, and I promoted him to partner, and now he makes probably $4 grand a month. I mean, we don't do a lot in business. right? It's not a big business for me. It's not my primary focus. He runs it now. And his job is now to take that and grow it, right? And my focus is in real estate. And
Right.
basically, um, taking that mindset, taking the understanding that if I go and just literally do the best I can do today, all right, I'm going to be better tomorrow, no matter what.
Exactly.
Period, point blank. If I leave it all on the table today and I go and get a good night's rest, I will have enough energy to get up tomorrow and go do the same thing.
Exactly. No doubt.
And
No.
and those consistent base hits, those consistent wins, you actually will start to change. You'll start seeing it. It's called the compound effect. Are you familiar with that, Lenny?
A little bit. A little bit.
So there's a fantastic book out there called The Compound Effect, and it talks about just literally doing just a little bit every single day. Like I'm not going to go to the gym today, but I'm going to put my shoes on and I'm going to go and I'm going to walk out my door and I'm going to close the door. Now I have a decision. Do I want to move forward or do I want to go back in my apartment?
Right.
Right? Right? Am I going to go to the gym? All I had to do is put my shoes on. Okay, maybe tomorrow I put my shoes on, I walk 2 steps forward, and then I go back. The third day, I put my shoes on, I walk 5 steps forward, I press the elevator button, and then I go back. Like it's literally what we're talking about here.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
just doing a little bit more tomorrow,
Right.
and eventually you'll find yourself in the gym, right? Or you'll find yourself on the phone with a seller,
Right.
and they'll ask you a question and you won't know how to answer it. Right? It's ridiculous, but at the same time, it's extremely simple, right? It seems like sometimes the people that are doing the $100 million deals, right? They all started off just like this. They made a decision that I'm going to go make a phone call. I'm going to go figure
Exactly.
out what is this going to be like.
Exactly.
They had to understand that they were going to fail at their first. Like I remember losing $5 to the next door neighbor, and I was like a 5-year-old kid, and he bet me $5 that I had 10 shots to make the basket in the basketball hoop, and I
Oh man.
missed. So I had to go give him my $5. Imagine a little kid. I was just defeated. Um, but that's literally what we're talking about. I'm okay with putting just a little bit of money in testing and
Right.
seeing if there's anything here. Right.
Definitely.
I'm okay with putting $100 in this relationship, putting $50 in this relationship, putting, an hour of time into this just to see if it goes anywhere. And you have
Right.
to be willing to test
You have
test
to.
this, test this, test this, test this. Learn as much as you possibly can, but you don't have to understand. You don't have to be an expert about it. All you have to do is understand it on an adept level, even a beginner level, as long as you can identify what a deal looks like. What does a
Right.
deal look like in this strategy? Hey, I'm not sure if there's something here. Let me go take this to someone I know that knows about this. Right?
Exactly.
And that comes from the book The Richest Man in Babylon. And in that book, are you familiar with that one, Lenny?
I
Ever
heard
heard of
about
it?
it. I'll have
Okay.
to go ahead and order it though.
So The Richest Man in Babylon, the one of the best things about that book, and there's many things in it, but this one message really is something that would be, I think, the most powerful. And the speaker, because I listened to the book, it's free on YouTube. But the speaker said, if you want to learn about jewels, ask the jeweler. Don't ask the horse trader. Don't ask the bread maker, right? That's like asking a family member, hey, what do you think about this investment idea? And they have no idea about investments. They have no
Right.
idea. Like, you're not going to ask someone about cars that has no idea about cars, right?
Exactly.
You know, it's the same exact thing. You're not going to ask someone, um, you know, how to win at Monopoly every time if you know they don't play board games.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
um, and there's just different things about that particular concept that got me stop asking people for their opinions. I just said,
Right.
hey, I know they don't know anything about this, right? But YouTube does, Google does. Let me go ask the
Yeah.
genie. Hey, genie, what can I, and I just have to be able to ask the right question. And really, the only question is how to.
Right.
If you can just ask the question how to X, and that's where the algebra comes in. That's basic Greek
Right.
algebra. How to X. All I have to do is find X. How to X. Enter X. Change X out with whatever it is you want. How to invest in real estate with no money. I learned how to
Right.
ask that question. Here we are, 5 years later, 5, 6, almost 6 years now. But
Boom.
being able to do that, just
Right.
ask that question and recognize that Google has all of the answers. And that's where it comes back to the world will give you whatever you ask of it. You need to only ask, right? It won't suddenly deliver $100 million suitcase on your door, but there's people that have had those success stories. There's people that will tell you how they did it, and
Right.
you can study their story and you could
Hmm.
study their strategies and do it as well. You could replicate what they're doing. If you want to
Exactly.
learn how to flip 100 homes a year, there's people out there that could teach you how to flip a house a year. There's people out there that could teach you how to flip 10 houses a year.
Right.
And look at it like the elementary coach, the, the middle school coach, the high school coach, the college coach, the professional coach, right?
Exactly.
They say mentors, right? Coaches, mentors, gurus, whatever you want to call it. You don't necessarily have to have that day one. If you want to perform at your very highest level, then yes, at some point that's going to make sense to do that. You might want to spend money into that, but you don't need to. I've not done that. I've spent money on courses. I've spent money on education. Yes.
Right. Right.
Um, but you don't need to do that right now to be able to make money, right? You can figure out basic techniques through YouTube. How to wholesale real estate. It's literally all you'd have to type in. How to, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
how,
Right.
how to
Definitely.
how to how to flip houses with no money, and it'll teach you how to wholesale,
No
um,
doubt.
how to do a lease option deal, how to repair the tie rod ends on my car. I knew nothing about cars, swear to God, but it told me the tools I need. I went to Walmart. I bought all the shit. I repaired my tie rod ends on my car, and then I took all the stuff back to Walmart. Right, understanding that hey, there's return policies, understanding there's frameworks, understanding that there's questions you can ask to be able to you know get stuff done on an extreme budget. I mean, this
Right.
was
Right.
10 years ago, but at the same time, I didn't have money to go pay and have my tie rod ends done. So I said, well, how can I save money? I said, well, there's this thing called a return policy. And so I leveraged the return policy. Everything in the world is leverage. It's knowing these things, right?
Exactly.
So, um, and it's kind of funny. It really comes back to being able to ask questions. How do I solve X problem? Right?
Right.
This is the problem I have. I don't have money. How do I go make some real quick? Or how do I go make some in a week, 2 weeks? And and that's the nice thing about lease options. You make 5 grand, you can make 10 grand in a week and a half, roughly 10, 14 days. If you've got a good lease option deal, you could put a tenant buyer in a property. You can make 5K, you can make 10K on your average house. And that could go down to 50, 60, 70K houses. People might spend 5K to move in. Um, the best lease option deal I did, the person put 21K down, right? And there's people that consistently do 15 to 25K lease options in different markets. John Jackson, he's a big lease option guy, and he does them in Texas.
Nice.
And I've had a opportunity to speak with him multiple times on the phone, and definitely knows what he's talking about. And anybody that has had consistent success, right? Not just 1 year, but over even a decade or more of using that one strategy, tells me that is tested through time. Right? It's been going, and if it's worked then and it works today, it's going to keep working. Right? Unless something completely changes, right? And then we have to move and do something else. But until it doesn't work, do it. If you have a strategy that you can wake up today, for example, and put your pants on and make 25K, I'd say keep doing that strategy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. All day long.
And you measure, how difficult is it to make this money? How much time do I have to put in to make this money? If I put my pants on, I have to go for a jog and then come back home and I make 25 grand. Okay. And I was on that jog for an hour. Okay. Well, let's say I put my pants on, I sit on the phones, I go put in an offer on a deal, it gets accepted, and I'm going to make 25K on that. And that call took me 15 minutes. What's my hourly wage? It's $100,000 an hour if I spent 15 minutes on it. Right. So you start with these lower dollar an hour tasks, right? I started at $9 an hour in the call center. Right. You work your way up to be more valuable, right? You solve a problem for a seller. You get a 5K lease option. Now you flip that 5K into 10K.
Right.
Or 9,900, right? and now you've got $9,900. Now you have some options. Now you have a decision you can make. You say, hey, I had to go through 100 calls. That was great. That really sharpened my skills. But now I've built my skills up to where I'm good enough to not have to make those 100 calls anymore. Let me go ahead and, hire John from, South America, right? Guys from Ecuador, guys from El Salvador, guys from Peru, anywhere in South America. A lot of these guys lived in the United States for many years and then were deported, and now they come back and they're in the U.S. For probably most of their childhood up through high school, even mid high school, and then they get deported. Right, a lot of people that happens to them, and they'll be able to speak excellent English. They'll be able to, they're very sharp, just like us, right? They know how to be taught all sorts of different things and barely have an accent. I have a person that works for me right now, and she's been great. She's pretty much an executive assistant. She does my Facebook posts. If I'm looking for investors to partner on deals, or if I'm looking for gator lenders, which are short-term funders for deals, if I'm looking for hard money lenders, if I'm looking for buyers for deals, like that's what she does. She kind of cultivates that relationship. She manages the Rolodex. Really is just a spreadsheet of names and phone numbers and emails of people, what they do. Maybe she makes special notes. I've got her trained to pre-screen real estate agent listings now. And that's where you can go. Once you go from 5K to 9,900, you could pay someone like that maybe $500 a month. Okay. To now they'll go make all of the phone calls to your 30 leads, your 60 leads. They'll pre-screen all of those. You give her a script or him a script, right? And they'll pre-screen it. And instead of you spending all the time on those calls, they'll go through all the BS for you. and then
Exactly.
send it to you, and then you just call and close it,
Exactly.
right? And then, so that's kind of like the natural progression.
Yeah.
But I would encourage anybody um, to go through that. Like, you can get started in the business, but even when you buy a McDonald's franchise, I mean, good God, spending $1 million, those people are
Yeah.
going to get in the business and they're going to learn all the things they need to learn about that business so they can
Exactly.
train their employees, right?
Yeah.
We have to take that same mindset. Like, hey, I just spent $1 million right now. I spent $1 million on this. I've got my assistant. They're going to be on the phone. Like, yeah, you spent $500 for them to come in and pre-screen these leads for you. But
Right.
it's really just trying to do as high of a dollar per hour task as you can. Eventually, that will now lead to maybe bringing on an operation manager or bringing on someone. Now, I'm
Right.
even me, I enjoy doing this business enough that I'm not out of that role. I still call and I'll
Right.
make the phone calls. I'm okay with that. Um, but coming this next year, we'll be moving to Huntsville, Alabama, and opening up a real estate office. And
Right.
I'll hire an operation manager. My best friend in the world lives out there. He's going to basically take the reins for that and we're going to hire a team, right? And we're going to start putting people in place for that. But it's taken me several years now of being in the business to feel comfortable to do that. Right.
Right.
And it's okay. You don't have to come in and right away, oh,
Exactly.
I gotta get out of this in
Exactly.
6 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. That's what
But
people do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Don't get me wrong. Like, I just took a different path, right? And for me, that was okay.
Yeah.
I was willing to get in there, make that sacrifice because I
Exactly.
knew eventually I want to do big deals. I want to do bigger deals. I want to be able to talk to people on a very high level, right? And eventually, the highest job in the world, the highest paid job in the world is syndication.
Right.
Large multifamily, $100 million deals. The guy leading that, I mean, they don't get paid. Like, nobody gets paid like that. I mean, you're talking about potential billionaire type of jobs, right?
Right. Definitely.
That's what that is.
So man,
Um, we're
oh, I'm
talking
sorry.
about that money. No, you're good.
Yeah. So before we go, Max, we're gonna wrap it up. We just been rolling. We've been rolling, getting us some good knowledge out here, man.
Yep.
Me, I'm always soaking it up. I'm always enjoying the conversation. Whenever we talk, man, always grab something. So
Oh yeah.
I said, let me pick his brain tonight, real quick. So
Right.
but
Right.
yeah, man, really quick, man. Tell the people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you may be looking for. We had talked
Sure.
about some development at one point. So just tell
Yeah.
people who you are, what you're looking for, how to get a hold of you, man.
Yeah, Michael Batista. I can be on. I'm really just on Facebook. I'm not a huge social media guy in terms of like making 100 posts a day or a week or anything. That's not my jam. I'm actually in this business doing deals. So facebook.com/Batista Invests. And that's plural, INVESTS. And you can shoot me up on Facebook Messenger. You can shoot me an email, batistainvests@gmail.com. Keep it pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
I don't have a CRM. I don't
Yeah,
have a
right,
big, I don't even, and that tells you one thing, guys. You don't need all this crazy software. I mean,
right,
yeah, I have a platform. It's a pay as you go, but it's not like a big CRM type of thing. Like, it's not super sophisticated. It's basically text blasting and scraping. That's pretty much it. And that's because I built it for me. I built it to keep it simple. I didn't want it to be super sophisticated because so many people get caught up in that, and it literally screws you up. It messes with your mind. So yeah, or you can hit me up on text to 570-340-0454.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely. Hey, Mike, man, thanks for coming by.
Definitely.
We definitely gonna have to do part two, because we did
Sure.
touch on the lease options, a lot. But I know
Mhm.
people want to hear it, and they're gonna ask me about it, and I'm gonna tell them, hey,
Right.
reach out to Mike Batista in the Wholesaling with Lenny group on Facebook. He
For
is one of
sure.
the he is one of the group experts, and you guys also heard him mention the coaching as well. So,
Mhm.
guys, get in touch with Michael, man. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another
Absolutely.
episode of Wholesaling with Lenny. We do have a brief word from my sponsor, so I gotta play my sponsor really fast.
Real estate investors, are you wanting to scale your real estate investing business? Batch leads is the answer. Why? Because direct to seller marketing is the key. It's finding motivated sellers. And with batch leads, you can skip trace, you can list stack, you can market via SMS or direct mail. It is truly the answer to scaling your business. Check it out and sign up today.
David Dodge, man.
Guys,
I know him.
yes, yeah, guys, we do. Also, welcome 7-day trial batch leads. So, Mike, if you got a 7-day trial, you should let us know so we can put it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Guys, once again, I'd like to thank StreamYard for making this possible. But without StreamYard, the podcast would not be possible at all. Guys, you can also get a 14-day free trial of StreamYard. You can do a lot of cool stuff on your podcast. Get with me. I got to give you guys that link for that free 14-day trial of StreamYard. Take your podcast to a new level. Hey, Mike, man, once again, man, thanks for coming on. Um,
Absolutely.
we're gonna go ahead and finish what we was both doing tonight. I'm about to get with the kids here in a minute.
Sure.
Um, yeah, because I want to talk to you about that deal, man. That deal they just sent me back, it was nuts, man. So
Oh, wow. Right on, man.
yeah,
Well, happy to
yeah,
help, and let me know if there's anything more I can do. Um, if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll get you directed to the right place if I don't know where the
no
answer.
doubt, man. And guys, once again, it's Michael Batista. The website is at the bottom,
Appreciate
the
it.
automated REI.com. You do everything that we just showed you guys on Batch Leads. You can do it right here at the automated REI.com as well. Hey, Mike, once again, man, thank you so much for
Definitely.
coming by.
Appreciate it, man. All right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you.
No doubt, man. You have a good one.
All right.